This is an absolute must-win for the Eagles.
The whole team?
The Eagles, all right? The Niners are playing with house money. With all their injuries, it's a great that they even got here. So they're playing with house money. The Eagles, somehow, Coach, Nick Sirianni, the seat seems to be a little bit hot.
Huh?
I wouldn't say he's on the hot seat, but that seat feels warm. And if he loses this game, who knows what in the world could happen? I mean, John Harbaugh's available. So I'm just saying. Jalen Hurts, all of a sudden, people have forgotten that he's been to 2 Super Bowls and won one as the MVP. So he's, if he loses this game, who knows what. A.J. Brown is just 1 loss away from starting something.
Oh! What do you mean?
Like Michael Jackson want to be starting something.
Yes, remember that
He
song?
might say something and start something. And they're at home. Absolute must-win for
I like the
you.
A.J. Brown part. The rest of it felt like appetizers to me.
Yeah, I like where you're heading, but I'm going to narrow it down to just Nick Sirianni, and here's the reason why. So he made the decision not to play the starters last week, which was controversial in consideration of what happened and them losing the 2 seed, where they could have potentially had the 2 seed, and they've been 5-0 when they've played at home, and both the NFC Championship games were at home. So there's that. But the flip side of that, I thought he actually made it a good decision, even though it was controversial, from a health standpoint, because both of his Super Bowl runs have come with extremely healthy teams. In 2022, is 22 out of 23 starters healthy. In 2024, is 21 out of 22 starters healthy. And now this year, he only has 1 of 22 starters on IR. And again, we should be 21 out of 22 guys healthy. So it was a controversial decision. And Harbaugh is looming, and people don't love him always. But when you look at it in comparison from a health perspective.
Coach, you know if Lane Johnson is back at practice?
I didn't get the most recent update.
He is. I just got it in my ears.
Another great, great decision.
Are you trying to give yourself?
Coach, right, I think you were poking it, Coach.
Listen,
He was testing. It was a pop quiz, Coach. That was a pop quiz. I thought you brought your A game.
It is Wednesday.
He just told me.
it literally just broke since you've been
It just broke. Excellent.
So I thought Coach's answer was so great. I don't have much more to add, except for I'm just going to piggyback off the Sirianni piece, which is this: John Harbaugh. Where was he before he was in Baltimore? Oh, Philadelphia. Yeah, and so when there was the reporting yesterday that more teams than there are current job openings called about John Harbaugh or about his availability, a lot of people, I think, probably smartly connected that team to Miami.
Yeah.
I am curious, and I would not put it past Howie Roseman and most notably Jeffrey Lurie, if this thing goes sideways at home in that building, to truly take Harbaugh's temperature. But Coach is right. Wow. It's a must-win for Nick Sirianni for those.
Yeah, as the individual who stated even before this season began that the instant the Eagles show any sign of vulnerability, both Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts would face intense scrutiny. I feel a certain validation. I encountered some disagreement at the time, but that prediction proved entirely accurate. I'm not necessarily arguing the criticism is merited, only that this is the inherent dynamic at play. We witnessed calls for Hurts to be benched and for Sirianni to be dismissed. The hot seat is a permanent fixture here. It will always be warm for Jalen Hurts, and especially for Nick Sirianni. Again, this isn't an endorsement of that reality, merely an observation of it. To extend the metaphor, if the coaching seat is like a car's heated chair, Jalen Hurts's is perpetually on the low setting, while Nick Sirianni's is permanently cranked to high. That's just the way it operates here. The Philadelphia Eagles organization, from top to bottom, will not tolerate a culture of not winning. That is the non-negotiable baseline. Figures like Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie possess immense confidence in the roster they've meticulously constructed. Should that roster fail to deliver a championship, the logical and primary point of scrutiny will be the coaching staff. This isn't a franchise run by individuals who lack football acumen or strategic vision. We need only look at the chronic instability of teams like the New York Jets or the Cleveland Browns for examples of that. Philadelphia is the antithesis of that model. Therefore, examining this team and the upcoming playoff contest, I believe anything short of actually winning the Super Bowl will precipitate a demand for answers. Serious, substantive answers. It's not merely about winning this singular game. I constantly contemplate, particularly with an elite franchise like Philadelphia, what their margin for error truly is. When are they allowed to lose? As I've stated repeatedly, expecting a Lombardi trophy every single year is an impossible standard. Yet, when your team enjoys strong health, features star players squarely in their prime, and boasts a roster universally considered among the league's best, the expectation crystallizes. You must deliver. All those conditions currently apply to the Eagles. Consequently, failure is not an option. It represents an organizational problem. This explains the decisive actions following the 2023 season. The franchise didn't merely scapegoat the coordinators, they simultaneously took a hard look at the roster and made significant, aggressive upgrades. There was a clear-eyed acknowledgement that both coaching and personnel required change. That comprehensive approach directly fueled their Super Bowl run. Contrast this with many organizations that tinker around the edges, making one change but not the other. The Eagles operate with a holistic, uncompromising vision. Regarding the controversy over resting starters in a meaningless Week 18 game, I find the uproar manufactured. My issue wasn't with the decision to rest players. I have zero problem with that logic. A.J. Brown suffered a significant knee injury in the final game of the 2023 season, which sidelined him for the playoff opener. Jalen Hurts dislocated a finger in that same game and battled knee issues throughout that stretch. Protecting your assets is prudent management. The controversy, in my view, stemmed from the poor execution in attempting to win that game anyway, not from the strategic choice itself. It's fascinating how the narrative shifts. When Sean McVay rests his Rams starters, it's framed as confident, forward-thinking coaching. When the Eagles do it, it becomes a debate about competitive integrity. The hypocrisy is glaring. I find it particularly grating when a coach like Ben Johnson makes a point of declaring, "We don't rest our starters, we play football." It comes across as performative toughness. Perhaps he should focus more on addressing his own team's postseason failures, historically embarrassing losses to the Commanders, and a catastrophic collapse against Brock Purdy and the 49ers that squandered a Super Bowl berth. The Eagles don't need to engage in that kind of empty posturing. Their expectations are intrinsic, built over a quarter-century of sustained competitiveness. The Philadelphia Eagles are the very definition of a sink-or-swim organization. They will not languish in mediocrity. Therefore, in a very real sense, every playoff game is a must-win. This is especially true with their current roster construction. From the Eagles' perspective, the calculus is clear. We won the Super Bowl last year. We returned virtually the entire core, 95% of that championship roster. We have the same head coach, the same defensive signal caller. We've added Saquon Barkley to a skill group featuring A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. The offensive line, led by Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata, remains elite. The defensive front, with Jalen Carter, is formidable. The names speak for themselves. If we examine the Kansas City Chiefs' dynastic run, we list their pillars: Mahomes, Kelsey, Hill, for a time, Reed, Chris Jones. The Eagles in this moment have assembled a similar constellation of talent. When you have that, you are obligated to compete at the highest level. Look at the Chiefs' consistency. Even in a down year, they reached an AFC championship game or a Super Bowl. The standard is perpetual contention. For the Eagles, even a season that doesn't end with a parade must at least prove the capability to return to the NFC Championship or the Super Bowl itself. You must demonstrate you can do it again the following year, or win a title within a short window to validate the "it's just hard to win every year" excuse. Failure to meet these benchmarks signifies a fundamental problem. Observe other franchises that have reached peaks but failed to sustain that altitude. The Baltimore Ravens just fired their long-tenured coach, and questions about Lamar Jackson persist. The Cincinnati Bengals reached a Super Bowl. What have they done since? The Buffalo Bills have been to multiple AFC championship games but cannot overcome Kansas City. The Los Angeles Rams won a title with Matthew Stafford, but have since experienced a string of postseason losses and haven't returned to the pinnacle. The Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs stand alone as the only teams in recent memory to not only win a Super Bowl, but return to it again, in whatever order. They exist in the Super Bowl orbit. Other teams, like the San Francisco 49ers, have been there but haven't won. and their appearances have been punctuated by significant gaps. 2019, then not again until 2023. The Eagles' standard is different. Over the last 4 or 5 years, it's been the Chiefs and the Eagles as the twin pillars of consistent high-level achievement. This is how the Eagles internally view themselves. A Super Bowl victory isn't a singular achievement to be celebrated and then filed away. It's the expected baseline from which you immediately begin the work to do it again. Imagine if the Ravens won a title next year. It would be a monumental, cathartic achievement. For the Eagles, winning in 2023 was followed not by a sigh of relief, but by the immediate directive. Do it again. We saw this mentality after their 2017 championship. In 2018, when Carson Wentz went down, the mandate to back up Nick Foles wasn't just to compete, it was to win another Super Bowl. And he nearly did, leading them back to the brink of the NFC Championship. This relentless demand is ingrained. We know this because, not long after, the Super Bowl-winning head coach was fired, and the franchise quarterback was traded, signaling a swift, unsentimental reset when the trajectory stalled. This operational philosophy is why I hold the Eagles in such high regard. They do not play organizational games. They do not tolerate protracted rebuilding cycles or make excuses. Look at franchises like Cleveland, Carolina, Arizona, or the New York Giants. Their processes often seem mired in confusion and indecision. The Eagles demand tangible greatness, and their actions consistently back up that demand. It's not merely lip service for the media or hollow locker room slogans. Contrast this with the decades of grand pronouncements from an owner like Jerry Jones, which have rarely translated into sustained postseason success. In Philadelphia, action and result are inextricably linked. Consequently, the two most prominent faces of this franchise, Sirianni and Hurts, will always operate under that intense heat. I am firmly convinced that even if Jalen Hurts wins another Super Bowl and MVP this year, the fundamental discourse around him would not meaningfully shift. Similarly, perceptions of Nick Sirianni would remain largely unchanged. Do we honestly believe commentators with entrenched views will suddenly alter their narratives? They will not. In many ways, the verdict has already been rendered. It reminds me of a pivotal moment in Breaking Bad, and I'll conclude with this, where a character realizes his adversary has already made a fatal decision minutes prior. The minds, as they say, are made up. That is the reality for Sirianni and Hurts. Should they win it all, the most generous concession might be, he's a big game player, immediately tempered with, but look at that stacked roster around him. He will continue to be analyzed through a lens of qualification that other elite quarterbacks often avoid. Admittedly, this is a privileged problem to have, the pressure that accompanies perennial contention. But the central point stands. The narrative frameworks are set. They are resistant to change. Those are my reflections. I am genuinely eager to hear yours. What is your assessment of the Philadelphia Eagles' situation? For whom is this a true must-win? Some may argue it's the 49ers or Kyle Shanahan or Brock Purdy under greater pressure. I wholeheartedly disagree. I believe the weight rests 100% on the Eagles, and specifically on the individuals leading them. For Jalen Hurts, I contend every game he plays for the remainder of his career, be it a Week 12 matchup or the Super Bowl, carries a must-win urgency. I stated last year, following their championship, that he would be the one quarterback not afforded the luxury of a down year or a failure to repeat. The Eagles are the one team expected to go back-to-back. Otherwise, it's construed as evidence of a fundamental flaw. The implicit demand is to replicate the Patriots' dynasty or be considered insufficient. Those are my preliminary thoughts. I read every single comment. Whether you agree or disagree, let's engage in discussion, even spirited debate, but ultimately, let's enjoy the exchange. Please consider subscribing. We are building a fantastic community here and would love for you to be part of it. My aim is to create a space where we feel authentically connected and excited to participate. I believe we're well on our way. Also, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it genuinely helps with visibility and the platform's algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.